Welcome back to Trots TV. It's time for 6 things we have learned, and we're going to be talking about wagering and ways to increase turnover this week. Robbie Morris is back. Robbie, new sponsor this week, obviously. Polo Ralph Lauren have jumped on board and provided you with a few shirts. Hello.
I had to buy some new ones. People were at me, so no, they come up good. I think pretty happy with it, actually.
Yeah, well, you would think that. Okay, look, mate, seriously, this week we're going to have a chat about ways to increase turnover. Now, the reason we're going to discuss this is that Harness Racing Australia have recently put out a report about a wagering report, and at the end there are a few recommendations on how to increase turnover in the sport, and it's a very important part of our industry, because without turnover, therefore we've got no money for prize money, and obviously owners, trainers, drivers, that's where you get your income from. So let's discuss that, and a couple of issues that came out of the wagering report. There's the first one I want to talk about. Now, this was only, they spoke with professional punters. They sent questionnaires out to professional punters and also to frequent punters. Now, with the professional punters, this was their third ranked integrity issue, and that was the change of tactics rule. And I'm big on this one, and I know I've had a chat with a lot of trainers. They don't like it. It takes away their ability to try something different or to catch other drivers and trainers unaware. But I think what people have got to understand and have got to realise, especially trainers that I've spoken with this about, without punters betting on our sport, we can go back and race for ribbons. We can go back and race for trophies, because there just won't be the prize money. If we keep slapping punters in the face by a horse that goes back 6 weeks in a row and then all of a sudden comes out, gets out to 20-1, and the owner and the trainer says, we're going to have a bet this week, and then charges off gate 8 and finds the top and leads and wins throughout, that's not a good look for the sport. And if we don't have change of tactics, if the stewards aren't allowed to go and penalise people, I think that's when we get into murky waters.
I agree with you to a certain extent. It's hard as a freelance driver. I can talk openly when I drive a number of horses, whether they're in Kerry stable or another stable, and the only thing I don't agree with the change of tactics is when a gate goes, things happen. That's racing. Plans go out the window. A, B, and C could end up anywhere. And the one thing the stewards are pretty hard on, when you give a change of tactics and you go and do something else, they're pretty hard on you. That you get you in the room, they've run you over the coals because, like you said, and like they should be doing, they're protecting the punters. But I think a lot of trainers and drivers get a bit edgy with it when sort of two gallops inside me that I thought was the leader, and I've said I'm going back, I automatically go, well, I can find the front here, I go forward. 9 times out of 10, the stewards are quite open to that sort of thing, but there is that odd little occasion where you can be sort of run over the coals by saying, well, you said you were going to do this, and you did this. That's the only thing. It's hard, and I agree with you. We've got to have punters to keep everything going. So it's a tricky situation, but I think it's definitely a point that we've got to be telling the stewards, and I think it's sort of up to the steward's discretion from there.
I do agree. I do agree with that interpretation. If you're in barrier 4, there's 2 leaders in 1 and 2. All of a sudden, 2 knocks over 1 in the score up. You've told the connections of the 4 have said we're going back, but all of a sudden the 2 speed horses are out of the race. Well, then you're showing some initiative. I think the stewards in that situation have got to accept what they're told in the stewards room. The speed horses are out of the race. We've decided to change our tactics as the gate's gone because of what's happened. I think they've got to go with that, but in most cases, we've got to be looking after the punter.
Definitely. Yep.
What's a point for you?
When you were going through the sheet, I sort of, one that caught my eye was they called it a platinum license. It's sort of a license for Group 1, 2, maybe 3, Group 3, those top echelon of races, where you have to have a certain license. You have to be a professional, or you have to have this platinum license that's granted to you by the authority to drive in the Group 1 races. I think it probably would create more confident betting, cleaner racing. The punter can sit there and say, well, I'm going to have my 1,000 or whatever they have on a horse like Bowtide, and know full well that there's 9 other very competent drivers around him, and barring bad luck, we should have our chance to get our money. I know it's probably going to turn a few heads and get a few people sort of off stride, but I just think it could be a good thing to make the punters a bit more confident in going forward.
Yeah, I think there's some some merit in that, because we spoke recently about that National Drivers' Championships, and I made the point then, it was so clean. We had the best drivers in Australia competing against one another, very little interference in those races, and I don't mind that one at all. Another recommendation in the report, the abolition of standing starts. Now, this is going to be a touchy one, suggesting to phase or to get rid of them straight away in pacing races and to phase it out in trotting events. Now, I'm not sure that we've got a big enough pool of trotters in this country, especially in New South Wales, that we can say, righto, we are getting lock, stock and barrel rid of standing start races. Because if you do, you just don't have enough T3s or T4s. Like, what do you make it? A T3 and better mobile every week, and you're giving the best horses, they're just going to continue to get to win. And the horses that get out of that TO, T1, T2, get to T3, they can't win another race. So I don't know if we can get rid of standing starts altogether to help turnover. I do think that they are not a great spectacle. I don't think punters, casual trotting punters or casual harness punters are big on them, because they might have their $100 on the favourite in a race. It misses the stand. It misses the start. I don't want to have another bet again. What do you think about it?
I don't really agree with it at all.
You like standing starts?
I'm a bit old school. I love a standing start. I think it brings out the best of the skill in the drivers, the skill and the patience of a horse, especially trainers keeping their horses calm. Look, I don't think you can get rid of them at all with trotters. I think they have to be there for trotters. It's life, I know. And I know some people probably don't really like them, but with trotters, like you said, like you look at our trot races, we have a T0 to T1 on a Tuesday, a T2 or better on a Tuesday, and a T2 or better on a Saturday worth quite significant money. Now, you couldn't have them races, because if you're a T8 and you're racing on a Tuesday for 7,000, if they're all mobiles, you might draw 8 instead of the poor T2 that's drawn 1, but you're a level when the gate goes.
Yeah.
There's no, you got to bring the T2 up to allow that 40, 50, whatever it is in between them. That levels the races, and we've done, I think, in New South Wales a great job, and our pool of trotters is getting bigger and bigger. If you take away them stand races, it'll get smaller and smaller. Pacing-wise, there's not a lot that nominate for them anyway. You might see your average stand up here and there, but I've got to say, I think they're a good spectacle. I love driving in a stand. I think everyone should sort of learn from word go to get one to step, because anyone can score up behind a gate and let one roll. They all know how to pace. But if you can get one to stand and step cleanly, I think it's a very good asset to have when you're driving and training-wise.
Maybe a good thing for the industry and people and the excitement factor. Maybe not a good thing for punting. But anyway, what's another one for you?
I was, when we were reading that recommendation, that no gear adjustments prior to the start.
2 minutes in the lead up. That is one of the recommendations that's there, maybe to get rid of gear adjustments. Therefore, races run closer to their advertised start time. But drivers aren't allowed to adjust their gear 2 minutes before the race start time.
I just don't agree with that at all. Things happen in the warm-up. Horses need hobble shorteners. Some horses could go and wear, you very rarely find them, but some horses could wear hobble shorteners, sort of 10 holes to get them out of the gate, tighten them up 10 holes to get them out of the gate. And you can't warm them up with hobbles like that. Like, they wouldn't be able to sort of pace. And you got to be allowed to get out and adjust things. I understand where they're coming from, because what they're saying is drivers are out for too long and drags a race on and the race runs late. But maybe if the stewards police it, I know quite of us drivers here that drive at Menangle, where there's always 4 or 5 in a 10-horse race that get out and change something. I get out quite often and check a bit of gear, and we're always back in the gig before the mobile's in position. So
the stewards will give you a $50 fine, won't they?
Yeah, they do. I know somewhere the other day, I think I might have been at the meeting at Goulburn, something happened, and the stewards were of the opinion that the driver took a little bit too long to get his stuff organised, and they fined him $100.
Yeah.
So the stewards are onto it. I think it needs to be there, because earplug falls out, tongue tie gets a little bit loose in the warm up. So I definitely think you can't take our right to get out of the gigs.
One thing that I think would definitely help turnover is having the numbers or the race plates, whatever you want to call them, on a horse, same colour, same state, or every state. So every horse that wears saddle cloth number 1 has a red saddle cloth. Every horse that wears number 2 has the if we pinch the greyhound colours, it doesn't really matter. But at least if you're watching a harness race, whether it be at Menangle or Hobart or Gloucester Park or Albion Park, and you've tuned in to watch the race, you might not know the driver's colours, but hey, you can see where your horse is because you can see the saddle cloth. I think that's just a no-brainer. That should just happen with the sign of a pen. All the states should get together. Let's do this. Let's get these organised. It will help turnover.
I don't disagree with you at all on that one. I don't have a problem. I don't think any trainer or owner would have a problem if the horse starts from barrier 1, whether it's a red barrier 1 like the greyhounds. You got to get that out of your head. People say, oh, we're not the greyhounds, we're the trots. If it helps punters, that's what we're about. Because like you said, at the end of the day, that's what our industry thrives on.
What's your last one?
The last one's a tricky one.
This is touchy.
It's just an opinion, and everyone's got each their own, and I know it come up in the recommendation, but drivers' silks. I know, and I've got a lot of owners that respect their colours, and we all respect owners' colours and their opinion to want to see their horses
race. Would your colours be white with a little polo Raffler end? I
don't have that much money. But I think it's good for the industry if drivers did have their own set of colours. Because like you just said with the punters walking in and seeing their number, if the punters walked into the tab on a Thursday night at Penrith and they saw Blake Fitzpatrick, Luke McCarthy, Rob Morris, and we've all got our own colours, at least then they can say, they recognise his colours. He's in the 1-1, 1 out, 3 back. I know it's probably disappointing for some owners that love seeing their colours, but for punters, if that's what they think would help, I don't have a problem with it at all.
I'm in the boat that if someone can prove to me that having drivers' colours will improve turnover, I'll go with it.
Yep.
I think it's very important. I know when I was at Sky, there was a push from WA to get us to flash up the full tab update on the screen so people could see what horse Gary Hall Jr. was on. Because on a Friday night, when guys are sitting in a pub and they can't hear what's being said on the TV, but they can see where Junior on what horse, they just want to have their $10 or their $20 on Junior. And I think there is something to that.
There's merit in that.
Yeah, so like, if someone can produce a report for me that says this will increase turnover by, so many %, that because we're going to wear drivers' colours instead of owners' colours, I'll go with it. Otherwise, let's not change it just for the sake of it. Robbie, thanks for joining us for 6 Things We've Learnt.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You've doled up. You've done really well. That's 6 Things We've Learnt for this week. We'll be back next week to discuss another important issue in racing.
This program was brought to you by Harness Racing New South Wales and the New South Wales Harness Racing Club. This has been a Harbour Television production.